The Absolute Value of Mike by Kathryn Erskine. Chapter 1, Parallel Lines. Lines in the same plane that do not intersect. My cell phone rang just as I was about to crush the Emperor of Doom's trebuchet and save the villagers from certain annihilation. It was the ominous beats of Beethoven's Symphony Number 5. Da da da. Yes, Dad. What is it? Could you come here, please? Why didn't he shout my name like a normal parent? I walked next door to the study and flicked the light switch on. He was pushing piles of schematic diagrams around his desk, sending dozens of small Snickers wrappers onto the floor. Dinner. I picked them up, along with the chunks of chocolate. Dad fell on the rug and shook my head. Dad was probably 50 pounds heavier than he should be. The giant genius. Dad, when Dr. McGovern said to reduce your fat intake, I don't think he meant reduce the size of your candy bars. I bet he was thinking more like salad. I don't eat salad. Dad's voice didn't match his frantic fingers flipping through the piles of his desk. What are you looking for anyway? No answer. His gray head was stooped so low that the glasses he shoved on top of it were staring straight at me. Glasses. Have you checked your head recently? I asked. He blinked up at me, then up at his forehead. Ah, it's actually my keys. I seem to have misplaced. But I noticed he put his glasses on anyway. Did you try your pocket? He patted his left pants pocket, and I heard the familiar jangle. Ah, thank you. He stood up and grabbed his jacket off the computer monitor. Must run. Teaching tonight. Seminar this summer. Romania. Dad had been teaching math for electrical engineers for so long, he spoke in isolated packets of energy, like he'd turned into electricity himself. I pinched my nose to do my robot voice. Too much resistance. Please complete circuit. Thank you. Dad took a deep breath. I'll be in Romania for 6 weeks this summer, lecturing at the university there and working on my book. Romania? The first thing I thought was, hey, isn't that near Russia where Sasha was adopted from? Then the full effect of what Dad said hit me like an electrical charge. I stared at him. Romania? You can't go away, I mean, by yourself. How are you going to survive? Dude, you can't even find your car keys without me. He blinked up at the ceiling. Car keys won't be necessary. I won't be driving. I won't be driving? Is that all he could say? But how about all the regular everyday stuff? He couldn't do anything for himself. Pay bills, make toast, find shoes that match. He stared at me for a second, which is about as long as you can hold a stare. Room and board is provided. Fine, I sputtered. I'll take care of everything here. As usual, I crushed the Snickers wrappers in my fist. Dad cleared his throat. My colleagues inform me that it's inappropriate to leave. Ah, he squinted at the ceiling. A 13-year-old home alone. 14, Dad. Do the math. You're the genius. Ah, nevertheless, I believe the minimum age stated was 16. Wait a minute. If I couldn't stay by myself, that meant he was taking me with him. Dad, we're going to Romania? A trip? Just like Sasha and his parents? Sweet, why didn't you say? No unsupervised minors allowed. I felt the chunks of chocolate melting in my hand. I can't take care of myself. Shoot, I've been taking care of myself and him for years. Dad shook his head. Obviously, I will not be able to supervise you there. I dropped the Snickers wrappers. Dad, you don't supervise me here either. Hadn't he ever noticed that? He paused and I thought I had him, but all he did was put on his jacket. I've contacted the aunt and uncle whom I visited in rural Pennsylvania every summer as a boy. You'll be staying with them. Rural Pennsylvania? Wasn't that where the groundhog lived? And if he saw his shadow, it was 6 more weeks of doom. This was even worse than Sasha's upcoming vacation. Wait a minute. Sasha! Hey, Dad, if you're going to send me away somewhere, can't I go backpacking with Sasha's family? They've always said I could go with them whenever I want. And boy, did I want the Canadian Rockies for the entire summer with no cell phones, iPods, or laptops. Much as Sasha and I cursed up and down about it, sounded like Nirvana compared to Groundhogsville with some old relatives I've never met. Dad pushed his fingertips together and flexed his fingers, gazing at them like he'd created some engineering puzzle. Sasha's father informed me it was a family bonding trip. Mr. Nambudri had only said that to give Dad a clue that maybe our family could use a little bonding. Of course, Dad didn't pick up on that hint. I'm practically like family to them. Dad shook his head, and your school, touchy-feely person. Counselor Dad, Mr. Macmillan. I still wonder what Dad wrote on my third quarter report card to make Mr. Macmillan call us in for that awkward little chat. He kept giving me sad puppy looks while he emphasized the word family to Dad, saying that I was at the age where I needed to know how much my family cared about me, and that, being a boy, I needed a male role model from my family. He was trying not to be
too obvious so as not to embarrass Dad. The truth is, you have to be really direct with Dad or he doesn't get it, like sending me to live with complete strangers. I stared at Dad. So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to go stay with people who technically are family, but I've never actually met? He nodded. And what exactly am I supposed to do there for 6 whole weeks? He gave me a small, tentative smile as if to say there's hope for this kid yet. Your great uncle is heading a project that involves math, a lot of math. It will be of great value to you. He's building an artesian screw. Dad immediately screwed up his face, maybe to look artesian. I don't understand the logic of that because, obviously, a water screw is designed to force water to rise, but artesian water rises naturally. He shook his head. Still, I said that you would assist with this artesian screw project. Great. I was artisanally screwed. I believe this project will help you with your math skills. You'll learn about oblique angles. Those are acute or obtuse angles, and intervals. Those are arrangements of elements of a set, as well as the property of physics. This was Dad at his most excited. Math, science, engineering. I tried to look interested. I tried to look like I cared. Okay, I tried not to yawn. You may be building a water turbine. That's a device that takes the kinetic energy of a moving fluid, converting it into mechanical power, and he stopped himself and smiled at me. Do you want to know the best part of this whole experience for you? I believe it might help you get into Newton. Was he serious? Newton High? A math magnet school? I'm no statistician, but what are the odds of a kid with dyslexia, a math learning disability, getting into math magnet school? Oh, yeah, Newton High was a feeder school for his university, and Dad did a lot for Newton. They'd probably accept a token math moron just to thank him. Dad, really, there's nothing wrong with the regular high school. You need to stand out in order to be accepted at a good university. Therefore, Newton High is the only choice. He sighed and picked up the photo from his desk. It was of Mom and me with a huge Lego drawbridge I made for Dad's birthday when I was 6. Your mother said you'd be a great engineer. His voice was quiet, as if we were talking to Mom, not me, like he was asking her what went wrong. And how was it possible that he'd ended up with me, Michael Einstein Frost, ignorant spawn of the great genius James Eliot Frost, Ph.D. I slumped back against Dad's bookshelf and felt the blue Lego brick that was always in my pocket. Mom called me her little engineer when I made Lego creations with my friends at Montessori, or when I got all the kids on the beach to help me make the biggest sandcastle. But it was when I made that drawbridge. It actually worked. And Dad laughed and hugged me that she called me a great engineer. Come to think of it, that's the last time I remember Dad laughing or hugging me. Soon after that, Mom was gone. I think you'd learn a great deal from this project, Dad said, still staring at the photo. I'd like to see you master math or engineering at an acceptable level, at least. If you can't solve the simplest problems, I know, Dad, I'll end up on the street. How many times had I heard that? That's when my toes started wiggling, and I knew I was about to have a brilliant idea. It always starts in my feet, and by the time I realize my toes are moving, the idea makes it up to my brain, and there it was. If I could ace this artesian screw, maybe Dad would be satisfied that I'd mastered math or engineering at an acceptable level. Then I could show him how I could take care of myself and not end up on the street. And maybe he'd let me just go to a regular high school. Someday he'd have to accept the fact that I could never be a math genius, much as he tried to teach me and have me tutored and send me to special camps. He still had hope for me. For some reason, I just didn't have the heart to make him see the truth. The plan had to work. The alternative, going to Newton High, where I'd flunk out for sure, meant a miserable me and a seriously disappointed Dad. As far as I could see, there were two hurdles. One, ace the project, and two, get my great uncle to convince Dad that I was a great engineer. The first hurdle was up to me, and I had a lot of practice at pretending I understood math when I really didn't. The second was an unknown. Hey, Dad, what's your uncle like? Dad chewed his lip and looked away. Of course, it wasn't the kind of question Dad could answer. It was about people. I don't know where he received his engineering education, and I'm not aware of all of his qualifications. Oh, and Mike, he looked at me in that cloudy way he had. Why did he always have to stop and think before saying my name? What? You'll need to remember that these relatives are now octogenarians. He carefully pronounced every syllable, since obviously I'm stupid. Meaning, they're 8-armed mutants. I knew what octogenarian meant, but I wanted to see if I could get him. It means they're in their 80s, he said slowly. They are elderly. I nodded seriously. Gotcha. They may have difficulty hearing you or understanding you. So instead of Dad not understanding me, I'd have, what are their names? Dad blew at a spot on the monitor and wiped it. Poppy and Moo. Poppy and Moo? Are you kidding me? Dad, you're sending me to live with farm animals? He sighed. You're going to have to control your impulsive behavior, given the demise they've recently suffered. Dad's gauge for impulsive behavior was a possum, preferably a dead one. Their only son died a few months ago in a car accident. Like Mom. Geez. The familiar dull ache hit my throat. I didn't know what to say. And then I couldn't help thinking, what if I die in a car accident while he's over in Romania? He'll have no one. And he wouldn't even be able to picture my face because he's got this weird condition where he can't make a mental image of a face.
Even if someone he's lived with for 14 years, like me. I glanced over at his monitor and saw my reflection. Like a shadow of a groundhog. 6 weeks of doom. I turned away quickly. Hey, Dad. But I heard the front door close. He was gone. Chapter 2, Transversal Line. A line that passes through two or more other lines at different points. Moo's white hair stuck straight out like the wings of a commuter jet I'd just flown in on. Her glasses covered most of her face. The rest of it was giving me an entire set of dentures grin. I'm so sorry I'm late, dear, but this airport is terribly confusing. See? She pointed at the sign above the gangway door I'd exited from my plane. It says exit 88. How many exits do we need? Actually, I corrected her, it says gate 3B. She squinted at it. Oh, well, that's a bad sign. She held out her tiny pale hand. Anyway, I'm glad to finally meet you, dear. Do you like Scrapple? I stared at her. Excuse me? She took a step closer and looked up at me. Even though I wasn't that tall, I still towered over her. Scrapple, she repeated. What the heck was Scrapple? What? She chewed her lip for a moment and waved her hand at me, and I bent my head down to her level. I could hear her taking a big, raspy breath. Scrapple, she shouted. Ow! I put my hand over my ringing ear. Oh, that must be your good ear. My left ear is my good one, too. We already have something in common. She patted my hand, the one that wasn't holding my ear. We need to go to Shop and Save because I want to buy you some food and Poppy really needs a Scrapple. I stared at her stupidly because I couldn't think of what to say. Moo gazed at me, her smeared red lipstick making her smile even broader. You look like your father, dear, only not as smart. Yeah, I know. She glanced at the exit 88 gate 3B sign for a moment and then looked around the concourse as if she were lost. But I can't see you. I'm right here. She flinched and turned her owl glasses to me. I know, dear. What I meant is I can't see your eyes because your hair is in front of them. I tried pushing some hair out of my eyes, but it didn't work very well. My hair grows in stupid swirls all over the place. I figure it's a commentary on what's directly underneath. Your hair is very different from your father's. James's hair was so limp. Yours is, well, you don't just see that many people with cowlicks. That's because I got all of theirs. Would you like for me to give you a trim? She reached over and touched one of my swirls. I cringed at the thought of someone with her eyesight cutting my hair. Oh, that's right. James hated anyone touching his hair, too. She sighed. At least you don't cover your ears and scream. Excuse me? Dad used to do that? Yes. You mean he's outgrown that? Yeah, well, he's 56 now. What else did he used to do? Well, he was always forgetting things. He still does. And he loved candy? Well, that hasn't changed either. He had unusual ideas. That's because he's a genius. Oh, is that what they're calling it now? What? Never mind. I'm glad to hear he's grown up a little. It takes some of us a long time, doesn't it? Still, little steps eventually get us somewhere. Speaking of which, we need to get moving. She turned and started off the way she came, her pale yellow sneakers looking like duck feet paddling down the concourse, pushing through the small crowd of people. I grabbed my backpack and sports bag and followed her. James said you're going to help Poppy, and I must say he could certainly use the help. Are you good at working with wood? I thought about my C's in shop class. It was the fine corners I wasn't any good at, but a screw didn't have any fine corners. Woodworking? I can't get enough at it. She clapped her hands. That's wonderful, Mike. So what exactly am I going to be doing? Oh, Poppy will let you know. Her smile remained frozen. Eventually. Eventually? But she hurried on. I just want you to have some fun, too. All work and no play makes James a very dull boy. I think it makes Jack a very dull boy. James is my dad. She smiled broadly and touched her forefinger to her chin. I know, dear. Wait, was she calling Dad dull? But I couldn't stop to think. I practically had to jog to keep up with her. Tiny as she was, that lady could move. Your dad sent some scrap paper for you. I'm glad to see he recycles old school papers. It has all kinds of numbers and symbols and nonsense on the back, but he said you could use it. As forgetful as Dad was, he hadn't forgotten summer math worksheets. The numbers and symbols made about as much sense to me as they did to Moo. I definitely needed to concentrate on the artesian screw. It'd be the perfect excuse for why I didn't get to work on the stack of worksheets. Is it for Gumi, what's the folding paper thing? Origami? That's it. Is that what you do with all that paper? Pretty much. If that's what you called crumpling it into balls, throwing it at the wall, and jumping up and down on it while cursing. Well, I'm sure you'll do something very special with it. Come along now. She readjusted her red purse that was so large it would have had to be considered checked luggage, and I watched it bang on the back of her white hoodie as she walked down the concourse. The picture of the white-haired woman on the cover of my old Mother Goose book flashed across my mind. I caught up with her and she grabbed my arm, maybe worried that I'd fall behind again. Tell me, what do you like to do for fun? Fun? I hadn't thought of that possibility. Do you guys have a PlayStation or an Xbox or anything like that? Oh, PlayStation. Yes, it's in the attic because we haven't used it since Doug. She let go of me and stopped, grabbing the strings of her hoodie and yanking so hard I thought she might strangle herself. She sucked in her lips and I didn't see any evidence of breathing. I was about to slap her on the back to make her snap out of it when suddenly she opened her mouth and gasped. PlayStation! She repeated, a definite nod but watery eyes, like she'd just recovered from a painful blow, but was standing back up in the ring again. Yes, most of the little people are gone, but the cars are still there, along with the gas pump. The plastic hose from the gas pump is a little chewed up, but it still fits into the cars.
She smiled up at me. I read the big red letters on the front of her hoodie that shouted, Holy Comforter! Even though the voice inside my head was shouting, Holy crap! Please tell me you have a computer. Dad made me leave my cell phone at home so I wouldn't be distracted from the mission. I had a cheap MP3 player, but absolutely no link to the outside world. No computer, but you have some nice new ones at the bank in color. Gladys loved to show off her new computer. She even gave it a name. She calls it Mac. Isn't that cute? I looked away so she wouldn't see my face and stared into Bound for Adventure books and videos as we walked past. Of course, movies. Do you have any DVDs? She stopped and clutched my arm again, blinking up at me. Oh dear, you didn't bring any of yours? No. Don't you guys have any? Yay!
All right. Cool.